sources say. Posted on benjaminfulford.net. By Benjamin Fulford. The U.S. presidential election due for November 8 will be cancelled and instead there will be war crimes tribunals held, sources in both the Pentagon and the CIA say. The excuse for cancelling the election will be the resignation of one of the presidential candidates, the CIA sources say. Here is the raw intel from the CIA. There is now a 90% probability that the elections will be postponed. I asked my contact in DC why. His answer was, "You can't have an election with one candidate." I asked him which one will be removed. His reply was, "I am not allowed to tell you, let's just say that Obama will make the announcement very soon." The Pentagon sources, for their part, say the 911 law will push Saudi Arabia to expose Israel, Bandar bin Sultan and the Bush cabal behind 911 and will lead to a real truth commission and a war crimes tribunal. Since it is only a few weeks before the election, it will not be long before we see if these predictions come to pass. In any case, the data dump of over 1 million documents revealing the extensive crimes of the Clinton Foundation make it clear there is a powerful faction within the military-industrial complex that is fighting to overthrow the Hazarian Mafia. That is because such a data dump cannot be carried out by individual hackers and requires a governmental organization with access to high-level computer systems. At the same time, the fact the corporate media and net giants like Google are censoring this data makes it clear the owners of the big corporations, Bush/Clinton/Rockefeller/Rothschild etc., are in battle against white hats in the military and the agencies. No matter what though, the Hazarians are not going to be able to murder themselves out of trouble this time because too many people are now aware of them and their crimes. That does not mean they will not try though. Bill Clinton, who is close to death from HIV, recently issued a death threat against this writer and Neil Keenan. The signs are that Neil Keenan has already been murdered. Although he used to contact this writer regularly on Skype, the current person pretending to be Neil Keenan on Skype is unable to answer a simple question that only the real Neil would know the answer to. Furthermore, the Neil Keenan website is now promoting Bush/Clinton Mafia con jobs like the Zimbabwe currency scam. Revenge for Keenan's death will be comprehensive and thorough, White Dragon Society sources promise. Furthermore, if this writer is killed, you can be sure the entire 13 ruling bloodlines will be wiped out going back 5 generations to the founding of the Federal Reserve Board. The families must think hard if they are willing to sacrifice the entire tree just to try in vain to save a rotten branch. In any case, the Bush/Clinton/Rockefeller branch of the Hazarian Mafia is now desperate for money. The recent Hurricane Matthew scam, the hurricane only existed in Hazarian Mafia-controlled media, not in the real world, was carried out due that the Hazarian Mafia could make some money by short-selling stocks in insurance companies, CIA sources say. Follow the money, it is the same as the shorting of airline stocks before 9/11, one CIA source says. The perpetrators of this fraud have been identified and will face long overdue justice soon, the sources say. Pentagon sources say that the end of the Chinese National Day Golden Week holiday and the end of the October 3 to 9 World Bank and IMF annual meeting, together with ongoing, systematic cabal terminations, should propel big moves towards the new financial system starting this week. It is also worth noting that the upcoming October 16 full moon is known as the Hunter's Moon, and it is open season on murderous Hazarian gangsters, the sources say. There also appears to be some sort of hit campaign going on in relation to North Korea. Sources in Japanese right-wing organizations say that the top North Korean agent in Japan was fatally poisoned recently by a CIA female agent who appeared to be just an ordinary Japanese woman. Another source, Japanese right-wing source, says North Korean strongman Kim Jong-un has also been killed. CIA sources in Asia confirm this and say Kim Jong-un has been replaced with a double, who is now under our control. The original went way off the reservation and had to be removed. This news report, for its part, says China is planning decapitation strikes against North Korea. That may no longer be necessary. Other sources, meanwhile, provided evidence to this writer that Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte is a Bush agent. Dr. Michael Myring, who later changed his name to Dr. Michael Van de Meer, claimed in a video recorded before his death that Duterte, at the time mayor of Davao City, planted the bomb that blew off his legs and that he did so on the orders of George Bush Sr. Furthermore, a known agent of Korea's Unification Church approached me to try to arrange a meeting between myself and Duterte shortly after he became president. I was probably wise to turn down this proposal because I like having my legs attached to my body. As is well known, the Unification Church has a ranch in Paraguay next to the Bush Ranch and has been involved in drugs and weapons smuggling with the Bush Nazi faction for decades. It is also a fact that using extrajudicial murder squads, as Duterte is doing, is typical behavior of the Nazi fascist Hazarian faction. In other words, Duterte's anti-American public stance may just be a Bush scam aimed at fooling the Asians and getting access to the hoards of gold allegedly existing in the Philippines. The Asians know the Bush faction tried to kill them off with bioweapons, so they should be very wary of Duterte despite his brazen sucking up to the Chinese. It is never a good idea to kiss a snake, the Chinese have been warned. The same is true of Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was fraudulently placed in power by a rigged election arranged by the Bush/Rockefeller faction. Abe is a known Bush/Nazi agent and will be forced to resign soon because the Japanese fascist group behind him has been decimated, according to Japanese right-wing sources close to the emperor. The same sources say Bank of Japan Governor Haruhiko Kuroda has also lost a lot of influence recently, since it is now known his real job was to loot Japanese savings. In the Middle East, meanwhile, Pope Francis, in an unprecedented move, elevated the papal nuncio in Syria to cardinal in order to defend Christendom, Pentagon sources say. Russia is also now taking over Aleppo from Hazarian ISIS mercenaries, while the Pentagon prepares to remove the ISIS mercenaries from their Iraqi headquarters in Mosul. Pentagon sources also say they have stopped numerous attempted false flag operations in the region by the Hazarians aimed at trying to provoke a US/Russian war. Also, despite a massive campaign by the cabal, the Hazarian intelligence operation posing as UN peacekeepers in Syria was denied the Nobel Peace Prize, the sources say. Instead, the Nobel was given to Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos for ending the 50-year war with the FARC guerrillas. This was done to push momentum for peace in the region and to override no vote against the peace agreement engineered by Bush flunky ex-Colombian President Alvaro Uribe, they say. The prize may be revised to include FARC leader Timo Leon Jimenez, the sources add. The Hazarian attempts to avert their downfall by starting World War III are getting more desperate and futile by the day. Their most recent gambit has been to try to provoke India and Pakistan into starting a war by shooting at both sides in an attempt to get their military forces to shoot at each other. They also managed to scare Russia into holding a massive nuclear war drill involving 40 million people last week. These plots are failing, as are all their other attempts at triggering mass killings. They also tapped a new UN chief last week, as the New York Times put it, trying to gloss over the fact this so-called leader of this so-called world organization was selected by the Hazarian Mafia and not by the people of the planet Earth. It does not matter though, because the powers behind the UN corporation, it is registered as such by Dun & Bradstreet, are bankrupt, and so, therefore, is the UN itself. The autumn offensive continues and hopefully humanity will soon be free. Finally this week, as a bonus to readers, we will list a few real-world spy tricks you have never seen in a Hollywood movies as described to us recently by a real-life agent. According to this veteran agent, most real-world spy activity consists of representatives of various intelligence agencies meeting for drinks and sharing information with each other. However, there is some real-life James Bond-type activity and sneaky tricks as well, he confirms. For example, he says Soviet female agents used to have a one-bullet gun disguised as a tampon in their purses. When their target searches the agent's purse for weapons while they visit the bathroom, they find no apparent weapons and so let down their guard. The female agent later puts the tampon gun to her male target's eye and blows his brain out. Another Soviet device he described was a ceramic tool kit that agents put in their rear ends. Since it can pass a metal detector test, they are able to smuggle it into prison even if they are stripped naked. Later, when nobody is looking, they pull it out and remove it. It contains a saw that can cut through jail bars to enable them to escape. It also has a container of a liquid that if they pour behind them ruins the noses of tracking dogs and makes it impossible for them to chase their quarry. Another thing about real-life spies that is not in Hollywood is the fact that they are usually very spiritual people involved in esoteric mysticism who are often connected to a religious organization. The ones I have met all agree we are living in prophetic times. The ancient satanic cult is finally being defeated. Thanks for listening and watching. Subscribe and share.